Offline Dating is a short documentary by Samuel Abrahams released in 2015. This documentary questions the status quo of internet dating as Abrahams challenges his single friend Tom to find his next single date offline. Capturing the interactions of Tom with strangers on the street exposes the struggle and complexity of finding a girl the old-fashioned way. Here I will be analysing the documentary in terms of the three elements of mode, context, and the director's individual style. This will identify the documentary's distinct and individual form in order to portray and successfully evoke people's reaction on the intended subject matter. Documentary is a form of cinema that speaks about real-life situations and events and seeks to inform us the truth, rather than fictional allegory. However, though this definition is for documentaries in general, Bill Nichols devised 6 modes of documentary to distinguish and group certain characteristics. These 6 modes are known as expository, observational, poetic, participatory, reflexive, and performative. In saying this does not mean that one single documentary must comply to a single set of rules and expectations, as one single documentary can flutter across any number of these documentary modes. However, for the purpose of analysing offline dating, we will be focusing on the characteristics of the observational mode. The observational mode is best exemplified by the cinema verite and direct cinema movement, which emerged in the 1950s to the early 1960s. In this time, speech could now be synchronised with images without the use of bulky equipment, and therefore resulting in the camera being able to move freely around the scene, recording what happened as it happened. All of the forms of control that are evident in a poetic or expository film, such as arrangement, composition, and overstaging, are sacrificed to observe a lived experience spontaneously. As a result, this mode of documentary forms a detached, unobstructed view, which is known as the fly-on-the-wall approach. It is called this because the filmmaker remains hidden behind the camera, is ignored by surrounding environment, and has no influence on the events or actions being captured. Other common characteristics of this mode include no voiceover/narration, faithful and transparent editing, no arranged interviews, events unfolding in real time, sync sound only, objectivity over subjectivity, and analysis of institutions. As previously mentioned, the observational mode overlaps with both direct cinema and cinema verite. These practices were extremely revolutionary in their time, as smaller and lighter cameras allowed for a less obtrusive way of filming events as they happened. The Maysles brothers were well known for developing direct cinema. Instead of planning a scene, they would let the story unfold organically as the camera rolled. They believed that the documentarian was an objective observer. A completely invisible passivist was opposed to a director or participant. In difference, cinema verite was the first developed by Jean Roush and brought natural dialogue and authenticity of action to documentary filmmaking. The philosophy behind this technique was that the filmmaker participates in the film as a subjective observer, combining observational and participatory in the same breath. Basically, there is an awareness of the camera that is filming the scene, thus establishing a connection between the cameraman and those who are being filmed. To compare, both direct cinema and cinema verite aim to uncover the truth. However, the former hopes to unveil the truth through camera observation, and the latter uses any means possible to seek out the truth. Markarinov uses theory of poetry for his classification to divide documentary into 4 fundamental modalities. 1. Record, reveal, or preserve. The second being persuade or promote. Third, analyze or interrogate. And the fourth, express. These are based on the specific process of composition, function, and effect, based on 4 fundamental trends or aesthetic or rhetorical functions, which he says are modes of desire, which have been at the backbone of the discourse on the documentary for decades. The observational mode of documentary links with the analyze or interrogate modality. This documentary's motivation transforms unacknowledged questions that lie beneath the non-fictional forms of potential subject matter. For example, on what basis does the spectator invest belief in the representation? The content of a documentary is the primary source of identifying the mode or modes in which it falls under. In this case, offline dating consists of many characteristics which identifies it as an observational documentary. Unquestionably, the role of the director/cameraman is one of the main features that identifies this documentary as observatory. Offline dating consists of a fly-on-the-wall approach, where the cameraman does not influence the content of the shot and witnesses what happens as it happens. For example, in the scene where Tom is asking two young girls on the pavement if either would be interested in going on a date with him, the cameraman is positioned behind them, peering through a barred fence. Here, it is evident that the cameraman does not want to be identified by the two girls, and his camera work is shaky and unedited, capturing the true responses made by the girls. This is a representation of direct cinema in the documentary. However, this is not always the case when talking about the filming throughout the documentary. Abraham uses direct cinema and cinema verite almost interchangeably, where at times he has positioned the camera far away like previously mentioned, where sometimes he positions himself extremely close to Tom, where he will be clearly visible to the people being filmed. For example, in the shot where Tom is asking a girl out at her front door, the camera is positioned as if he is standing right next to Tom. It is evident that the influence of the cameraman and the participation of the cameraman plays a role on evoking the truth from the young girl, as she turns her attention to the camera and blatantly shouts "no" to the camera before slamming the door. The narrative behind offline dating plays an imperative role in interrogating the issue of social media, and it being our only means of contact in modern society. The importance of construction of the scenes is crucial for the viewers to see the progression and difference in the approaches Tom makes when asking each of the women on a date. The documentary is structured in such a way that it shows Tom implementing one approach to asking the women, which starts off with him blatantly asking, "Would you be interested in going on a date with me?" without the implementation of a procuring conversation. It then continues with him being rejected before showing shots of the women giving him advice on how he should approach women. It is not until these scenes are shown that Tom yields the advice and implemented a new tactic of getting to know the women before asking them on a date. It is from here that Tom starts to gain success and finds himself on two separate dates. However, by watching the takes one after another, you can see that the events don't actually happen in this chronological order. This is because you see Tom change from one outfit to another interchangeably, and scenes of conversations with the same women are used throughout the film's entirety. Therefore, it can be assumed that the entire take is not used all at once in the documentary. However, it is cut to fit the narrative of the film. However, it still remains objective in terms of the content, keeping up with the observational mode, but the editing allows the audience to receive the intended message. The individual director's style is an important aspect of a documentary as it puts their own individual spin on what could be seen as a common issue. In terms of editing, Abraham puts his own spin on the conversations had between each of the different women. He puts almost an overlapping effect on each of the takes, showing the crossover and the similarities between each different interaction. For example, a conversation Tom has with a woman from a previous scene plays over the recording of another scene. Tom was with a woman from a previous scene who was giving him advice about how to be more romantic when asking a girl on a date. This is happening while showing the scene on the video of him giving a lady flowers. This adds to the narrative of the film, showing Tom's progression of taking the advice and it going well. Here, the truth or the overriding theme of the documentary is shown as he successfully lands a date offline. Although it is a voiceover and this is not a characteristic of an observational film, it is not a voiceover of the producer, it is a conversation. This still makes the film observatory as Abraham uses observational content to voice over the scenes, but still has the godlike effect on the film. This is a representation of the style that Abrahams wanted on this observatory documentary. The music used throughout the documentary also adds to the narrative of the film. Although observatory documentation does not necessarily state that it has the inclusion of music, and generally uses sync sound only, Abrahams chose to include a light guitar melody throughout the documentary's entirety. The sound of the music reminds the audience of going on a journey or an adventure, which in reality, that is what Tom is doing. It remains quite subtle throughout the film, however, the music enhances with a triumphant hum when Tom is successful in landing a date, to reinforce the success that he has achieved. The addition to this triumphant music adds something extra to the documentary and zones in on the conversations between Tom and the women instead of including the surrounding noises of the public places. To conclude, when analysing a documentary, it displays certain characteristics which categorises it into one of Bill Nichols' 6 modes of documentary. In relation to offline dating, Abrahams adopted the observational approach to a documentary aimed at changing the status quo of dating in today's culture. However, Abrahams included his own personal style to convey the intended message and to promote people to get off their laptops, off their phones, and get interacting with people in the real world. Thank you.